Hello, good morning and welcome back to the Fish Locker out on the boat. Don't need to say much more than that, do I? I'm on my way out now. I'm going to try and do a little bit of lure fishing and then I'm going to try and anchor up on a new piece of ground. The reason I've just cut the engine here is because I saw some birds working and some fish topping. And I'm hoping if it's some mackerel and some bass, I might be able to pick up some bait early on. So I'm going to chuck a little bit of a lure around here. I don't know if you're going to be able to see them. Just kind of topping just there. That's what you're looking for. What it is at first light they've forced all the white bait right up to the surface. So yeah, I'm going to chuck a lure about round, see if I can't find something. If it's a sizable bass, brilliant. If it's mackerel, even better. Yeah, I think most of them are just going to be little tiny schoolies. Give it 10 or 15 minutes because there could be a bigger fish amongst them. Could see something on the bottom, turned out it's scad. Loop back round and try and get half a dozen more of those. Quite often you'll find that mackerel will be all the way through the water column, and if there's anything tight on the bottom, quite often it's scad, also called horse mackerel. Now we have got a little tiny bit of tide left, not very big tides at the moment, so we're not going to be drifting very fast, but we have got a little bit of wind. I'm going to see if I can't pick a fish up on the lures while we go around and try and find some more bait. I don't want to put the anchor down until I've got at least half a dozen baits. Either mackerel or scad, poutine, that type of thing. Now I want to have at least half a dozen baits before I put the anchor down. Currently drifting over an area reef that is 22 metres deep. Just using a 30-gram spinning rod, 4,500 size reel, and I think it's a 30-gram lure. Just dropping it down to the bottom, bouncing on the bottom a few times and then reeling it back up to the surface. What I think we've got at the moment is I think we've got quite a few little tiny pollock and things like that down there, because I can see them on the sounder and I can feel them snapping at the tail of the lure, but they're just not hooking up, and that to me says they're most likely going to be little fish. So I'll try a little tiny lure and see if I can't sneak one out. Yeah, most of the bait fish that's around at the minute is little tiny white bait and only that big. So quite often what you'll find is the fish will be preoccupied looking for prey species that are like that. So there's no point using like a monstrous great lure, because the fish won't take it. Which way we're going to go, left or right? You have to keep your eye out for them. Not only would you snag up and lose your lures, but if you got it fouled around your prop, you're in a whole world of drama. The boat just will not stay in one position. Just cannot get the boat to stay in the right position. I think I might change that. Oh, what a... I don't know if you can see the dolphins chasing them, but there's fish everywhere. Yeah, what we've got is we've got loads and loads. It will look like pilchards. The dolphins are just thrashing them. I can see the fish right down at the bottom, the bigger ones. There'll be bass and mackerel right down at the bottom. Right, this is the seabed. Those marks there are bass. Can you see the individual fish there? See, they're not moving about really, are they? It's because the tide's real slack. They're not really on the feed. That is crazy. It is crazy that there can be that many fish here and none of them want to take a lure. I wanted to take it easy because it's only a really little lure. I don't usually use a net, but this lure's tiny, so I thought I'm going to have to. There is a lovely silver bar. Now it's actually, it has taken this lure quite deep. See if I can't get it out with the forceps. There you go. All I did there was I unclipped the lure and took it out through the gill. But yeah, they don't. Everything that they're feeding on is absolutely tiny, so I'm presenting something tiny. I knew there was going to be some better fish down there. I knew it. Not what I was hoping for on the feathers. Yeah, not what I was hoping for on the feathers, but a fish is a fish. Pooped all over me. Tell you what, the bites are few and far between. It's a pollock pretending to be a bass. A little pollock. Yeah, usually you can tell by the fight what fish it's going to be. And pollock generally give like a crashing dive. This didn't do that. And bass, what they do is they hook up and they shake a bit, and then they'll usually run high and come in along the surface. So this maybe identifies as a bass. Yeah, the bites are really hard to come by. And the wash has picked up on here, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and try and find somewhere to anchor up. It's not very nice, is it? I think nobody likes being slopped about the place. Well, this is what it is. This is what the little bait is that's down there. The dolphins, the gannets, everything else is feeding on. This guy's going to cause me some trouble. They just leave scales like absolutely everywhere. Now, I think that's a pilchard, but I've not seen one before that's got like a yellow mouth. So I'll have to look that up. If it's anything other than a pilchard, I'll put the name in, but yeah, that's what it is. It's just one of these, just one of those days today when you're constantly like rolling around and slopping around and and a little tiny joey mackerel. Now that's staying in a live bait tank. Just everything is hard to come by today. I mean, that little bit of footage, I tried to do some footage of the sounder to show you that the fish are there, but it must just be because the tides are that small, they're that slack. They're just sitting there, they're not doing out. The dolphins are feeding, seagulls are feeding, but the fish aren't feeding. This is a completely new spot that I've never anchored before, and I'm just trying to figure it out. I mean, it's going to be a little bit sloppy. It's going to be a little bit of banging on the boat just because there's this sharp northerly slop. But yeah, we'll give it a go. What's the worst that can happen? It's really rocky, but it's rock that backs up onto sand. So yeah, anything. Could be anything. Could be anything. Could be bullocks, could be conger eels, could be bream, could be probably dogfish, likely dogfish. Yeah. We'll give it a try. As it's rough ground, I'm going to be using a grapple anchor. Now usually you'll try to put out 2 to 3 times the depth of water in rope. So if we're in 30 metres, you want to be looking at putting about 70, 80, maybe 90 metres of rope out. Now if you've got a stronger tide and a bigger boat, you're going to need to put more rope out. But yeah, there's all sorts of variables. Like you would see, you're supposed to have 1.5 times your boat's length in chain. The more chain you have, the less rope you need to put out. If you're interested in learning how to anchor a boat, I've got some videos. I will tag them into the description of the video. One on how to anchor a boat, one on how to anchor a wreck. I do all my anchoring off the back of the boat, make it off to the after cleat, and then pass the rope over the front. Saves me doing it all out the front. Now that I've passed the rope up the front and tied it off to the cleat, I mean we're anchored backwards, but I'll slip the rope off like that and swing round. Just like that. Right, we'll give you a couple of minutes for the boat to settle out. When she's sat where she wants to be, see about putting some baits off the back. Now I did struggle to find bait, I did struggle to find like mackerel and scad and things like that. But I have brought a little bit of frozen squid, so I'm going to put some baited feathers down, see if I can't catch some pouting and whiting. We'll use them as bait as well. Double shot of a really big male cooker wrasse and a little pollock. Yeah, that literally just banged on the bottom once. Oh. Ah, you're on the boat now, aren't you? On my spinning rod, I'm just going to put a little... People know these by different names. This is a Nautilus jig, a tie rubber jig with 2 assist hooks, and 100 gram. I'm going to drop that down and bounce it back. Use them a lot in like Australia and America and New Zealand for snappers. Work really well for big ballan wrasse and bream. Starting fishing on a new area like this, I mean I don't know what's going to be there, but I can guess. There's going to be hopefully little pouting and whiting and things like that. Pouting, whiting, porcod, small wrasse species. I wouldn't mind catching a couple of those as live baits. But at the same time, I want there to be little fish there, because if there's no little fish there, there won't be big fish there. I'm hoping to put some smelly baits down. I'll fill it off one of them scad and send half a scad down, just to try and get some scent and some blood in the water. Try and get a bullhuss or an eel. But at the same time, you've got to expect that you've got to start a scent trail first. You've got to get the fish on the feed. You might be really lucky and you might knock one on the head, but it's unlikely. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to start the fish feeding and bring them to your bait. That's why I would have liked about half a dozen mackerel or scad. But we'll just do what we can. Well, first fish to come on a jig is a dogfish. I'm not saying I'm surprised. I was hoping it was going to be a while before these guys found me, but I'm not surprised. The good thing about this is I need some pop bait. So all of the dogfish that I catch today, especially this one because it's just pooped all the way down my arm, all of the dogfish I catch today will be dispatched and will be used in crab pots. Yeah, they have a terrible habit of as soon as they get on a boat they just spew up or they poop everywhere. Not my favourite fish. That's more like it. Glad I left them feathers down there. I just thought to myself, I thought there might be an errant mackerel snake around here because I'm on the sand just against rock. I thought there might be a mackerel snakes around. Perfect. On the big rods, for the big baits, I'm just going to be using the Fish Locker conger rigs. Now I'll put a link into where you can get these, but yeah, I use these a lot. Perfect for conger and ling. But they'll also stand up to anything else that's big. I've had good bullets on this, I've had a little porbeagle shark on one of these. A 10 meat hook, 200-pound line, and a scad flapper. A northerly wind like this, it never makes for nice conditions. Even though I've took myself, I'll show you. I've took myself right tight inshore underneath a bit of a rock to try and offer myself a bit of a lee shore, some shelter out the wind. Northerly, your tide runs that way. No matter if it's flooding or if it's ebbing. And when the wind's coming straight across it, when you've got wind across tide, all that happens is your boat just swings around like that. Ideal conditions are no wind or wind and tide together. It's one of those deliberations that you make. When you first head out in the morning, do you spend all your time finding bait, or do you get to the mark and hope you can find bait when you get out there? Because I've had it before though, and there have been times where I've spent like an hour looking for bait inshore and then steamed off to where I was going, and as soon as I got there, there was loads of bait there. You just think, oh, wasted an hour, I could have an hour fishing. Or there's other times where you'll just think, no, there'll be bait when I get there. You steam like an hour to get to where you're going and there's no bait at all. So you're stuck. You've got to the mark, but you've got nothing to use as bait. There's a nice bite. Yeah, it's a dogfish playing with it. Almost like a perfect semicircle bite mark in it. When you're swinging around like this, obviously it's not ideal conditions. Try and keep your baits as far away from each other as possible. If you throw your baits out and leave a little bit of slack, as the boat moves, the bait should stay stationary. If you've got your baits right under the boat, every time it moves, it drags the baits and you end up in a big tangle underneath the boat. So yeah, ideally what you want to try and do is you want to try and get your baits away from the boat. And say like I'm using 3 rods here, but I'm only using 2 baited rods. I'm using the little jig and I'm using a big one. Now the little jig I don't mind if it trots a little tiny bit, but the big one I want it to stay stationary. And the baited feathers, no, they're not even baited anymore. The feathers I've just got just below the boat. So yeah, it's about keeping the bait and keeping the baits, keeping the lures, keeping the rods away from each other. Yeah, I've just had a fantastic bite on that jig. turn around to turn the camera on. Wound it up. Oh. A pollock. A nice pollock on feathers. Little tiny sabikis. Where were you when I was fishing with the lures? Yeah, that's frustrating, that. Because it was a real good, like, turn around to take camera on, as soon as I've lifted into it, bound up. There's not much you can do here. Well, there's very little I can do here now, because I'm on such a light setup. Usually all you can do is you either hold a bit of pressure and hope it comes out, or let it go slack, and then when you can feel it move, it'll maybe shed the hook and you can get it back. I can still feel it there, it's still knocking. Yeah, like I can see, you can either pull for a break. I can't really do that because I'm on real light gear, or give it some slack and hope it comes out by itself. Look, they're just chewing the tail off it. Move that down to an 8-0 instead of a 10-0 and see if I can't get them out. Just yeah, not what I wanted. Yeah, that bite was really aggressive, even especially for a dogfish. I would have thought it'd have been a bullous. Bullous do give a really aggressive bite. That's what I'm hoping for with this rod, not doggies. I've moved spots by about 300 yards just because the spot where I was fishing, when the tide swung round, it swung me right off, so I was fully on the sand. And I want to be slightly on the rock. Dropped down with the feathers and picked up a nice little male cuckoo again. Yeah, unfortunately as well, because when the wind swung round, that that jig that I had with that fish on it, it was stuck in the rock. It just pulled the boat straight away from it, just parted me off. So yeah, tied on a new leader and put on a new jig. Try that again. Still fishing exactly the same rigs onto the same type of ground. Just a little bit of broken ground with a bit of sand in it. Just because I want to be catching mixed species. I would like to find the bullhuss. I think this would be quite good ground for a bullhuss. But we'll see. Got some nice good fresh baits now. We'll fish this out for a bit. The tide is well into the flood. It's good. It's a small tide, so you're not getting very much tide, but it's good to have a little bit just to carry the scent away. Let's hope, now that we're sat back at anchor, that the wind doesn't change again. It's frustrating like that. If the wind can only change by a few degrees, and it yeah, it messes everything up. Yeah, fingers crossed. How dare you! I was sure that was going to be a bullhuss then. See what I mean? Look how they just poop everywhere. They just poop everywhere. I know they're going to be down there. They will be down there. They will be down there. Give it half an hour more, and if all I'm catching is dogfish, I'm going to go somewhere else. I might go and just try and chuck the lures around for another half an hour before I call it. Right, that's it. Enough's enough. Let's get that anchor in. got enough doggies for one day. It's kind of what I've said though, is when you're experimenting, when you're exploring new marks, you're going to have to find the odd bad one, aren't you, before you find a good one. There you go. Tripped it out backwards. I hope you enjoyed joining me. All the very best. See you later.